Aloha and welcome to Truth in Movies. I want to make sure that the audio is working. We're breaking down the Rings of Power. We're on episode number 4 right now. And we last left off with this woman right here, Galadriel. She's in the kingdom of Numenor, which we broke down in the last couple of episodes. The human kingdom, just outside of this paradise-like place that was basically the home country of the Elven race. And her quest is to stop Sauron, right? Sauron basically represents the negative energy that's built up in our world, basically represents the devil, Satan, and many other names. So we're going to pick up there where we left off. And we have a really interesting episode to share with you today, or I do. So let's go ahead and pick up at the very beginning, where the Queen of Numenor is having this vision. This is her vision. She sees her whole land being flooded with waters. If you look in the background, you see the wave back there starting to rise up. This is shown in many different movies. Let me show you this next clip too. Watch these waves in the movies. There's only a certain height that a wave can actually go to naturally in the world. In the conditions that we live in today, they can only build up to a certain height before they really start to fall down. And that's right around 100 feet typically. But if you change the conditions in the world, for example, if we go through atmospheric depressurization and buoyancy increases, now during a world storm, you can have those waves build up and up and up. Just like we see in various movies where they show you the waves that don't crash. They just keep on getting bigger and bigger as a wall that just keeps on rising. It's also akin to the story in the Old Testament, the Red Sea, the parting of the Red Sea, where the waters just rose up like walls on each side. So she has this vision of her kingdom being flooded. Also harkens back to the time of Atlantis, when Atlantis was said to have been sunken. Did the land actually sink down, or did the waters rise up above it? Either way, we have these legendary depictions of these phantom islands, mythic lands, legendary countries that are often associated with magic and energetic power that have been sunken below the waters. Now, we get back to Galadriel. Galadriel is talking to the queen and she's asking her, I need you to leave this land. I need you to take your people and go to the Southlands to fight with me so that we can protect the men of the Southlands during what's going to be an apocalyptic event and a great world war, which is basically Ragnarok in Norse mythology. She says before Sauron claims their lands for his own, the Southlands. So if we take a look at Mercator's map of the Arctic, which I often refer to, this little circle right here is depicted on many different maps during the Middle Ages, the Dark Ages, all the way up to about the mid-1600s. This land, this circular land right here, which I believe to be Atlantis and the Garden of Eden and Hyperborea, etc. This is the northernmost land. This is the land beyond the north winds. Everything south of there, this rock right here in the middle, this is called Rupus Nigra. I believe it's a plasma volcano. This is what I believe is responsible for our compasses pointing in this direction, right? So this is true north, basically. Once you go down inside of this opening that's inside of this this little, now I can't get it back. Once you go inside of this little opening on this plasma volcano, because it's hollow on the inside, it leads down into the hollow earth, down into the hollow recesses in the underworld. So if this is north and true north, if you live there already, every land surrounding it would be considered Southlands, the Southlands, right? So these are the Southlands. If we correlate the fictional story of the Lord of the Rings to our actual real Earth, and we assume and suppose that it's retelling history that we've just forgotten about, then this is what we're looking at and this is what we're dealing with. Now, she talks about a tempest, right? She says, there is a tempest in me. It swept me here to this island for a reason, and I will not be quelled by you, Regent. Regent is comes from the word reg, which essentially means a straight line, right? To be on the straight and narrow, to be righteous and pure, etc. So that's why queens are often called regal, the king's royalty, regal, etc. If we look up the word tempest, though, Most people today assume a tempest just means, you know, oh, there's a storm outside. Any old storm is a tempest. That's today. That's not the way it used to be. If you look up the word tempest, you'll see it here. It comes from the Latin tempestas, which means a storm. Now, let's take a look at that real quick. In Latin, tempest and then as at the end. As, as we've said many times here on my channel, is a suffix that indicates, it can also be a prefix, but it indicates strength or exceedingly strong. So an exceedingly strong tempest. What does that mean? Here it says from the Latin tempestus, a storm, a commotion, weather, and a season, an occasion, and a time, which is derived from tempus, or time, season. It also says to see the word temporal, which is directly related to the word tempest. So how did we go from the word tempest meaning or tempestas, meaning a strong time, a powerful time, to something that just means common weather, just a regular storm? Oh, it's a tempest outside. No, it's really not. A tempest happens once in a blue moon. A tempest is a world storm that indicates a shift in time, a change in how we mark our times. When that world storm appears, from the time it appears to the time that it returns and the time that it comes back, that storm is a marker of time, as are the things that come along with that storm. So she says there's a tempest in me. So right now, figuratively, she represents that time, that tempest. It swept me to this island for a reason, and it will not be quelled by you, Regent. Regent, meaning those in power. Those in power cannot stop the apocalypse, as try as they will, and they have, and they are, and they will continue to. Seems to me that they're trying to provoke an apocalyptic event. At least that's what my research has indicated to me. But they can't. They cannot alter it. They cannot change it. They can only get ready and learn about it so that they can protect themselves for when it comes, and their family members. Now, if you remember, we left off Erondir. He's the black elf, the African American elf, etc., as portrayed in the movie. And he was captured by the Orcs, right? So now, last time we left off, we were getting a teaser that the leader of these Orcs, which people haven't seen for a very long time, they're hiding underground, right? So this leader of the Orcs reveals himself, and it's seen that he himself is actually an elf. You see by the pointy ears, you can see his sort of pale complexion, which typically that's how the elves were portrayed. Basically a vampire race, right? And his name is Adar, and Adar says to Erondir, "You have been told many lies. To untangle it all would all but require the creation of a new world," right? So that's reflects for me, that reflects the world that we currently live in. All of the lies, all of the distortions, whether they be purposeful, knowledgeable, and backed by intent, or if they be out of ignorance and natural causes, just the natural dissipation of knowledge over time and people becoming lazier and forgetting because of the increased entropy in this world and the lack of energy and our own forgetfulness and tendency to forget things. The world is full of deceptions, right? History is full of deceptions. Our stories, our very own stories, deceive us as they go from fact and actual events and play out through a telephone game of time and end up cartoonified and representative of actual events, right? So in order to fix all of that and to return the truth, and keep in mind, sometimes the bad guys, sometimes the people who are represented as being evil or whatnot, they can tell the truth too. Just because they're evil doesn't mean that they're lying. Evil and good are both polarity. They're both two sides of the same coin, essentially. At least it's portrayed that way sometimes in the movies. So it says that in order to undo all of these knots of the truth or lies or deception, we need a creation of a new world, which is what I talk about here on my channel through the plasma apocalypse theory that I talk about. But that is something only the gods can do, right? The creation of a new world or a new world order, that's not something that man can do. That's not something humans are able to do. It takes a godlike energy, or an energy that is seen as God itself, right? In order to build the house. We are but the decorators. We are those who just occupy the house once it's actually been built. Once the shifting walls of this maze and this labyrinth of our world are settled, then we just go around filling in the blanks, and we color and we decorate, right? But we are not the ones that create a new world, nor can those who are regal or in charge of us. Now, here is back in the elven territory of the Southlands. They're hard at work building their new tower, which kind of is reminiscent of the Tower of Babylon. As you can see, there's scaffolding. There's these spirals that wrap around it. It's unfinished at the top, representing the unfinished pyramid and things of that nature. And we've got a view from the window here. And he says that the elves and dwarves are working together. Remarkable. This is Elrond looking through the window. He says the elves and the dwarves working together. Remarkable. As he looks at the Tower of Babel, symbolically speaking, right? So the elven race are the mighty ones, the mighty people that lived at that circular land at the North Pole. They're the eternal ones. They're the ones that are immortal in comparison to those who live further away from that energetic source of the earth. As we do here in the Southlands. The dwarves are representative of what are known as the Skraeling, the Skraelingers, as they're known in Iceland and Scandinavia and Norway and stuff. The Skraeling are basically dwarves. They're small, little people. There's different races, legendary races of human beings that have existed throughout antiquity. Today, we're just only used to a few of them. But there used to be various and diverse types of humans back during a time when the world was energetically charged and it was a time of magic. Now they go back to Prince Durin. He's the prince of the dwarven people, and he's helping with Elrond. They're best friends. And Durin's gone missing. Elrond's looking for him. So right now they're inside of this mountain where the dwarven people live, and Elrond is speaking to Prince Durin's wife, who's over here making some dinner or something. And he's like, I can't find Prince Durin. And she says, did you try asking his teams, his work teams? So his work teams, did you try asking where he was? He says, yeah, all 19 of them, but they keep putting me off. 19. How many people have noticed certain numbers popping up from time to time, especially when it comes to esoteric communities, truth-seeking communities? There are certain numbers. Numbers represent frequencies, vibrations. They also represent symbolically certain events that happen in our ancient past. 19 is one of those particular numbers. So let me show you here. For example, in the book of Enoch, right? If you look in chapter 6 in the book of Enoch, it lists these fallen angels, right? And it talks about how these fallen angels, they fell down, or they came down, or descended, and they landed upon this holy mountain that they dubbed Mount Hermon, or Harmon, or Mountain of the Moon. They descended upon this mountain, and then it lists how many there were. Right? I mean, there were 200 in total, but their leaders were 19. Here's the names of the leaders. Samlazaz, their leader, or Samyaza, some people say. Arakabal, Ramael, Kokablel, Tamlel. These are also, they're pronounced in different ways. Sometimes it's Tamiel, etc. Tamiel, Ramiel, Daniel, Ezekiel, Barakiyal, Azael, Aramos, Batarel, Ananel, Zakiel, Samsapiel, Satarel, Turel, and Yomael and Sariel. These are 19 in total. You can count them up real quick if you'd like to, but those are the 19 leaders of the fallen angels, quote unquote, right? We also have a correlation with this map and the number 19. If you take a look at these waters, you have one main body of water in the middle, as it should be. But then that one splits. as it commonly does, and it turns into four main rivers. These are the 4 rivers of paradise, but those 4 rivers, which also kind of look like electrical discharge, scarring, if you take a close look at it, this entire thing is made that way. Count up the subsidiaries, the tributaries of these 4 main rivers. Let's check it out. Well, we've got this one, which I believe is the Euphrates, the original Euphrates, and it has 7 different heads right there. So 7. This one, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. This one down here, 13, 14, 15. And this one right here, 16, 17, 18, 19. 19 once more. Another number 19 during a place that is commonly, by some, attributed to the Garden of Eden, the place of creation. Now, he finds Durin, right? Elrond has been looking for Durin. He finds Prince Durin, and he's hiding way down in the mountain, and he's hiding some sort of a secret. He's in this cave that's sort of locked off, and he goes, "You want it for yourselves." And Elrond's like, "I don't know what you're talking about. I don't care for whatever's behind that door. I don't even know what's back there." He says, "What's the meaning of this? What's going on? Why are you hiding something from me? I'm your friend." And he says, "It's this, a new ore." So, this is a powerful substance. It might just look like a piece of metal to you or to me, but in the ancient world, there were legendary metals. There were legendary crystals. There were objects that were, or seemed to be, imbued with energy, imbued with power, that had invisible and effective effects on people and plants and animals. They were objects of power. This new ore. So he holds it up, and you can see it's shining almost from the inside. It has a light all on its own. He says, as a species, it might be dearer than gold. More dear than gold. Well, yes. What use is gold, right? Unless you're building a computer or a cell phone or something and you need it for its electrical, capacity. It's not good for a whole lot. Other than those types of things, it's definitely not good for making weaponry or anything. It's a very soft metal. It's the conductive nature of it that gives it any value in the modern world. In the ancient times, I have a theory that those who descended down onto that mountain, once they came in here, they were cut off because the firmament fixes itself after worldwide depressurization. Once they were cut off from the heavens and from the energy thereof, they were stuck down here, and they suddenly gained a lifespan, which meant they started to die. They would not be completely immortal, right? But their energy would slowly be taken away by Mother Earth herself as that energy goes back into the world. So what they did is they tried to find other ways of extending their life force. Some of those ways included digging up these legendary metals, minerals, materials, and crystals that were imbued with healing power, or you could say radioactive energy, right? Not in the same way that things are radioactive today. Today, these same types of metals that once used to have power and magic, they are going through what's known as radioactive decay. They're not infused with that same power anymore. They're losing that power, which makes them more dangerous. So, those gods, those mighty beings, angels, whatever you want to call them, they recruited the human race to go dig it all up, to go find it, and probably other races as well, to go find these shiny metals that glowed in the dark, that gave off a light that was all their own. And they had them bring it to the gods. The gods would use that, and I'm just using that term loosely, but the gods would use that to heal themselves, to extend their own life force and their own energy, which made these particular ores and metals and crystals more valuable than any other. And they shined with that light. Now, once those beings left, because there's a time when those beings all left and they took off during another apocalyptic event. When they all left, the humans were used to going and looking for the shining metals. But after those metals lost their shine, they stopped. They started to lose their energy, right, and going through radioactive decay. So they just look like regular metal now. Instead of looking for the shining metals and crystals, they looked for metals and crystals that simply shined, or reflected light, not created their own light. So gold was one of those. It's actually what gold means. It means to be shiny, or it is shining like, reflecting the light. And even Elrond says it's strange how it catches the light. Almost seems lit from within. This is a little hint that the movie and Tolkien in his books and whatnot dropped to us about these silmarils, or about these special crystals or metals that glow all on their own. That's radioactive energy, basically. He says, in our tongue, it's called gray glitter. So gray glitter is what the dwarves call it. And he says, no, we would call it mithril. Mithril. Now let's take a look at this word mithril, or you could say mithril, right? Mithril is what they call this shiny substance of the gods. Let's take a look at it, right? It's directly related to the god Mithra. Mithra, right? If you take a close look, let me just zoom in. I pulled up the Wikipedia article on Mithra here, and I'll just read it. It says, the Avestan hymn to Mithra is the longest and one of the best preserved of all of the Yachts. Mithra is described in the Zoroastrian Avesta scriptures, or Vestan scriptures, as Mithra of wide pastures, Mithra of the 1,000 ears and of the myriad of eyes. So some sort of energetic creature or godlike being that has, or appears to have, thousands of ears and many, many, many eyes on it, right? The lofty, that means very tall, right? And everlasting, which is really age-lasting. If you look up the word everlasting, that word ever really means age. So for a long time, but not forever. The province ruler, the Yazad, or the divinity of the spoken name, the holy, these are all names of Mithra. The Corda Avesta, the Book of Common Prayer, also refers to Mithra in the litany to the sun. Now, many people in the modern associate Mithra as a sun god. Oh, he's the sun god. But I feel many people in the modern academic world are mistaken, thinking that there were all of these various sun deities that represents our sun that we see in the modern world today, when there were different light sources during this time of magic, right, that people would call suns or lights. Refers to Mithra in the litany to the sun. Homage to Mithra of wide cattle pastures. These cattle pastures, when you hear about these pastures and valleys and farmland and stuff like that, oftentimes it actually refers to like the Garden of Eden, basically. Whose word is true, who is of the assembly, right? The assembly is that mountain where the angels assembled and where the people come to pay homage to that light and to that energy. Who has 1,000 ears, the well-shaped one, who has 10,000 eyes. Now, they didn't count 10,000 actual eyes, probably. It just means a lot of eyes. The exalted one, exalted means high up, right? Who sleeps not, the ever wakeful. So this was a godlike entity that was ever present, always there, always manifest, right? For at least during the age that he existed, or it existed. We sacrifice to Mithra, the Lord of all the most glorious ones, of the supernatural Yazads. So may there come to us... Hold on, let me make this a little smaller. So may there come to us aid, both for Mithra and Ahura, of the Devas. Now, right down here, I want to read this part that I've highlighted. Let's see. Well, I can't let you guys see it, I guess. There it is. So it says, some recent theories have claimed Mithra represents the sun itself. But the Corda Avesta, which is an ancient historic record, refers to the sun as a separate entity, right? So even some of the academics who are studying these things, they have found evidence that the sun was a totally different entity, right? The sun was commonly known as Shamash, as a totally different god or entity or whatnot. Right here it says in Zoroastrian, which is funny. If you ever see this word, it basically means the zero star, right? Or the circle star, right? Which is that inverted dome at the apex of the firmament. In Zoroastrian scripture, Mithra is distinct from the divinity of the sun. Vare Kasheta, literally the radiant sun, from which the Middle Persian word Khorshid, or the sun. So here we have another reference that Mithra is not our point of focus that circles around our world up there in the sky today. Now, this is also interesting. In Manichaeism, it says here that the first, well, let me read this first part. It says Persian and Parthian-speaking Manichaeans used the name of Mithra current in their time for two different Manichaean angels. The first was called Mikrazd by the Persians, which was known as the living spirit. Now, all you need to take away from that is that basically I'm connecting Mithra with the blue beam that I talk about, right? That blue beam of energy represented by Enlil or Enki, and Jesus and many other types of gods and saviors and demigods and whatnot. So, a living spirit, right? A savior figure who rescues the first man from the demonic darkness into which he had plunged. This is the light of the world that shows up after the night is over. We live during the night. We have a night light called the sun, but we lived in a dark world, in a dark city. And the time will come where the lights all erupt. It will be the age of light. The second was known as Mihir or Mihir Yazad, or Yazid. Amongst the Parthians is the messenger. So another one referenced as a messenger, right? Just like Mercury was the messenger of the gods, right? And Mercury holds that staff that goes up and it's got the serpents going up and a ball at the top. It's the same symbolism. Let's continue on. Here is an example, right? So if you imagine that beam of energy is Mithra, right? Which is light, basically, that shoots up. This is how it's portrayed. This is the tree of life in ancient, Babylonian areas. It's a beam of light that shoots up. It's a column. It's a pillar that shoots up, and then it branches out at the top, which is that sort of flower-looking deal at the very top there. And then it has all of this electrical stems coming off of the side with plasma balls all the way around it. These would be the 1,000 ears, 10,000 eyes, etc. Here's the opening in the sky up there at the top. I don't know if you guys, there you go. Here's the opening in the sky up there at the top, the winged disc or whatnot, right? Sometimes it would be drawn as horns as well. This is why Mithra was known to have slayed the bull, right? This is the celestial bull up here at the top. Often it's the upside down crescent, because that inverted dome at the top, it goes through its own little cycles just like our moon and stuff. And so it has a crescent cycle where it looks like horns right there. But Mithra was also, the literal etymology of the word Mithra basically means the binder. It means one who binds, right? One who makes an accord, an agreement, a promise, you could say, a covenant. So he became the god of contracts and contractual law, just like the laws of the sea and the ocean. And Mithra was also the god of the waters. He was the one that supplied the waters for the cattle in the area. Here's another example of that tree of life from like the Mesopotamian area. Sometimes it's got the little branches coming downwards just like that, but these are plasma instabilities. You can see at the bottom these ones go up. Right down here they actually go upwards, and these ones come out and they go down. They go down sometimes, they go up sometimes, they fluctuate. This is the tree of life. Here's another example of that same type of thing. All right, that's pretty much all I want to share about that. So Galadriel goes before the queen and she's like, I want to show you something. And she has this pillar with this ball on the top, and she takes off the veil. She removes the veil. And Galadriel recognizes this sort of crystal ball. It's not really crystal, it's rock. But it's a seeing stone. And she goes, palantir. These are called palantirs. If you watched my breakdown of the actual Lord of the Rings trilogy, which I've done, we've mentioned the palantir as being these sort of seeing stones, crystal balls, basically. Let's take a look at what that means. What does palantir mean? Is it just a fancy made-up gibberish word that Tolkien just came up with, out of thin air? No. If you take a look at the root, it's pal, P-A-L, right? The word pal is derived from pole, right? The faithful, the true, the straight and narrow, etc. Pole, or Middle English, pole, pal, etc. It means a pole, a stake, a post, etc., and so on and so forth. So we have a pole, boom, as we should. And then the on at the end, the palan, just means of the, so of the pole. Okay, so what does Tyr mean? Well, Tyr is the name of a god, an ancient god, an Old Norse god named Tyr, Tyr. Tyr stems from an earlier Proto-Norse reconstructed of Tiwar. Now let's take a look at that. See that? Tiwar. This is also where we get Tuesday. Like all the days of the week are named after gods. I don't know if you guys knew that. But Tiwar is tower also, right? Basically. Tiwar. And then it gave rise to these types of words over here. Tiwaz, right? Ar, ir, ar, those are just suffixes. So tiu and then az means strength, tiwaz, which turned into diwas, which turned into dios, which turned into dios, which turned into dios, which turned into the basically word for God, right? So it's a powerful entity. She says 7 seeing stones there once were. 7. But we had 19, and now we have 7. This is interesting. 7 seeing stones. Now, if we take a look at the word palantir, and we break it down and we just turn it into a sentence, it implies tower of the pole, or god of the pole, right? So, I'll just be plain with you. I believe it represents this one represents 1 out of 7 plasma volcanoes that surround that northern area that I showed you, Hyperborea, right? And we have evidence of this because on all of the ancient maps, the entire northern sea is known as Septentrio or Septenderu, which is tree, right? Or tower. 7 towers, 7 trees. The other 6 are lost or hidden. Place your hand upon it. So, what happens when you touch these holy mountains? What happens whenever you put your hand on the black rock? Right? Not any old black rock, but these particular ones that are directly energetically charged and have current running through them, earth current that goes all the way down into the heart of the inner earth sun or energetic source of our world. You become connected. That current runs up into your body through your chakras and through your aura, etc., and it imparts knowledge to you. At least that's how the traditions depict it, right? That's how it's depicted in fiction. That's how it's depicted in religion, etc. It is the rock, the seeing rock. She says, I must warn you. She's like, I've touched these before, but she's like, yeah, but you haven't touched this one. So she touches it, and it gives her the same vision that it gave the queen earlier, which was this flood that comes. Now, this is the time of magic that we're looking at. Right? This is the time whenever our world was closer to tropical and desert-like, etc. They didn't have major oceans like we have today. They didn't have a flooded world. The flood comes after the land of magic. It wipes all the land of magic clean and gives rise to the blue skies that we share in today. And then we have to build technology to get back our magic, etc. Right? So it's showing her what would happen in the future. That's what these plasma volcanoes did. Right? If people came to them. That's why all of the wizards and mystics and seers and enchantresses, etc., why they are all so closely associated or lived in caves. Right? They lived down into that earth because they received the energy, the knowledge from the earth herself. Palantiri show many visions, she says. Now we skip over and we get back to Arondir, and they're being chased by these orcs. But the orcs have to stop at the tree line right over here, and the sun's coming up from behind these clouds. So all these orcs, they get into the sunlight and they just start freaking out and sizzling and stuff because these orcs, you'll notice, for the most part, they're all very what I call phantazoid white. They're almost albino, like a dark albino, but they are photophobic, right? This is where the legends of vampires not being able to go out into the sunlight or whatever, these creatures were born and bred and lived and survived underground under different light sources. There's all types of different light sources, but they're not used to the direct light of a point of focus, which is this right here. Those in the Southlands who survived and stayed in the Southlands and learned how to survive during trying times, when the point of focus reappeared and it came back out, they gradually grew accustomed to it because it wasn't like this to begin with. That point of focus was more dispersed. How do I describe that? It was a light that was more of a blurry light. It was a dimmer light, and it was a red spectrum light. It was much bigger, and it didn't give off such a direct energy, right? The rays of the sun used to be more diffuse, basically. But over time, they would become more directed, and therefore it would start to change color and go through a color spectrum shift. The people who were surviving in the Southlands, they were accustomed to it, just a little dim light at first, but over time it grew stronger and they grew stronger and their bodies developed melatonin to combat that, right? So they grew darker and darker, and basically they are able to withstand the sun better than those who are from the north or from in the earth or from those who came down and fell from the heavens, where they don't have that point of focus. So they show you the comparison here. And I believe that's why they chose, an African American to portray this particular elf in this particular moment, especially with the sun in the background, because that reflects the truth of our world and how we have these different races of humanity and how they come about. So they're all hiding in the shade. All the orcs are hiding in the shade. And then they're trying to shoot the arrows at him, so they just take off. Now, we get back over here, and the Dwarven Prince goes to see his father. He wants to help Elrond out, because they found that special legendary metal, right? And his father knows about it, but his father is suspicious of the elves. He's like, I don't know if we should give this to them, right? I'm pretty sure that they're sending your friend over here so they can steal all of our gray glitter. Basically, that's special legendary metal, which we'll take a look at more in the next episode. Now, the queen back in Numenor, she decides to give Galadriel the boot. She's like, I'm kicking you out. You need to go back to your elven people. Goodbye. So she puts on her boat and she starts to send her away. And as she leaves, the boat is taking off. They have this sacred white tree that was basically a gift from the elves that gave the humans this island. And there is an omen, there is a legend that when this white tree starts to shed all of its petals, that it should not be taken lightly, that it was significant of change. These are the omens that many people disregard, don't even know about. We're ignorant of signs, of wonders, of omens, of harbingers. These are the things that in the ancient world, they were commonly taught. They were commonly known about. Some people had areas of expertise in interpreting dreams and omens and visions and divination and whatnot. But whenever all that energy reversed as they went through their polarity shift and all that energy started to get sucked down into the bowels of the earth and we lack it up here on the top, then people cared less and less about energy, about connection, and the connection of the energy between all things, and they started to lose their knowledge of omens and signs. But back then, they knew what it meant. Whenever this white tree started to blossom, and I mean not blossom, but started to shed its leaves. So she freaks out, and she sees all these white petals falling everywhere, right? This is also, in books and movies, it's called foreshadowing. So it's showing you what's going to happen in the future. It's also, that's a fancy word for prophecy, okay? So this is prophetic. You see all these little white leaves falling all over the place, and then they start covering her right here. She's just surrounded by all these white leaves. This is going to happen, except for it's not going to be white leaves. It'll be ash in future episodes. You'll see. Now we get back, and she's like, call her back. This is, I'm reading the omens. This is a bad sign. I can't just let her go by herself. So she brings Galadriel back, and she says, we're going to help our brothers in the Southlands. She didn't want to, but now, because that tree lost its leaves, she's going to help them. We will aid our brethren who are besieged in the Southlands. And she invites Galadriel back. And the king says, our ships will depart in 10 days. So they're going to leave that little island that's just off the coast of Hyperborea in our world. And they're going to go travel to the Southlands to help them out and to prepare for what is coming, right? If they live during the time of magic and the time when those blue beams fill the atmosphere, that's good energy. That's the golden age, etc. Etc. Dang. So they're preparing for an electromagnetic shift. If this is our world, let's say we're just peering into our very own past as portrayed by ourselves in the present. Then what they're doing is they're preparing for an apocalyptic shift. They know war is coming. They know that an evil energy is about to take over the world, giving rise to the time we now live in, which I call the season of Satan, or this is Satan's little season, or Satan's little time to rule, which is not a person, it's not a figure, it's not an entity, it's an energy that is left over, basically. So this guy pulls out the scroll and he's like, who is willing to commit themselves to our queen's protection? Who will go to the Southlands? And everybody starts cheering and volunteering to go. So pretty much everybody in Numenor is going to leave and go to the Southlands in an upcoming episode to try to help the Southlanders. The Southlanders are different types of humans than these ones. Remember, all these humans in Numenor, they live longer. They're closer to Hyperborea or the Garden of Eden or that plasma volcano at the center of the world, Rupus Nigra. So they live much longer. They tend to be healthier, and so they're going to come in as demigods, essentially, to help mortals like us out here in the Southlands. So they all prepare to go. The queen takes a look at Galadriel like, all right, I'm with you. I believe you. I saw the sign, and it opened up my eyes. And anyways, that is the end of today's presentation. I hope you guys had a blast. Leave some love in the comment section. Let me know what you think about this series. When we're all finished, then I'll string them all together, edited it all up, and we'll probably play all of these along with our breakdown of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, if you're interested in that. All right, until next time, I'm JayDreamerZ saying good vibes and goodbye.
It'd be easier for me Ooh.